All right, it is 6:09. I'll call this Dalton Township Planning Commission work session meeting to order. Start out with a roll call. Dave, I am here. Jesse? Here. Nick? Here. Lee is not. John is not. Casey?
Here.
And Todd? Here. All right. All right, we can do the public comment. I will open the public comment at 6:09. And I will close public comment at 6:09, as we have no one here. Review the items for public hearing. We have the amendment to the zoning ordinance for accessory building area. I don't think there's too much.
That was just changing it to 4,000, I think, correct?
Yeah, we're just going to adopt the other one. I think that's just the, that'll be, I don't think probably too many people come, because this will be the public hearing, correct?
Yeah.
So that'll be pretty straightforward. We'll give the people the opportunities to comment on that. If there is any comment, give that the opportunity. We'll have our chance to review it and pretty much go straight forward, and we'll make our opportunity at that point. And at that point, do we vote on it after the public hearing that night, or do we wait till the next meeting for us to vote on it?
We'll vote on that after the public hearing.
Okay. All right, moving on to review of new business, the election of officers for 2022. Is anybody interested in sharing? I will gladly, if someone would like the opportunity to.
I nominate Dave Quick to chair the Dalton Township Planning Commission.
Except we don't have to do that right now.
Oh, I thought we had to do that right now.
No, it's a discussion.
See, now I've learned, you've tipped your hand. Okay. We will have our separate meeting, discuss Nick. Everybody get your bumper stickers together, and signs will be printed. There you go. Does anybody not want to continue in the capacity then, or is anyone interested in taking on?
Real tough sign the name. Okay, unless somebody else wants to put their name on it.
Well, we'll leave it to ponder, and we'll travel down that road, I guess, the night of, see if anything happens. We've already seen, we have Mr. Benedict here, so we've already, I have to keep, Nori sits down there, and now I understand. All right, the items for discussion tonight, the one was chapter 17.
I want to jump back here a second.
Sure.
Because it's something I just noticed I didn't catch before. But with this amendment for the zoning ordinance for the accessory building area, we have one more piece that doesn't line up, that maybe we should clarify now. So H1A there, for the ag district, we have parcel of 5 acres or less, total floor area up to 2,400 square feet. We go over to R1, 1 acre or less, up to 1,200.
Yeah, there's an
So
extra.
now we have another discrepancy of if you have a half acre in ag, you can have 2,400 square feet, but if you have a half acre in R1, you can only have 1,200. Because it's 5 or less, but then it's 1 or less. So it's like the same discrepancy we're changing right now,
Exactly.
3 to 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the
Good
1
catch.
up to 5 matches.
I looked at that so many times and I wasn't sure. I thought, well, that doesn't, should we change that and make it so they're exactly the same?
I'm
But I
almost
couldn't figure out why, but you just told us why, because
So
there's a
like
discrepancy.
maybe we just scratch like 2A, the 1 acre or less, and then on B, maybe just say parcels under 5 acres, so the verbiage matches.
I like that.
And then
So
we're not
B-
adding more.
Yeah,
So take 2A, the plan would be to take 2A out, and then change B to say parcel of, and it'd be the same,
Just
acre,
word it
5
same as
acres or less.
Just word it the same as H1A.
Yeah, so it'd be parcel of 5 acres or less.
yeah.
So a residential lot, that's a half acre. Do they even have an ag half acre lot?
I don't, in that massive stuff, I don't know, I mean, there's all kind, I don't know, and maybe that's,
Well, so there's a couple of things there. Residential can't be smaller than 1 acre for building. The ag, because there was that mass rezoning in '06, it caught everything. You have
There's a whole
every
bunch
single lot in there. You have houses on a half an acre in ag on N120. So that green area is a mess as far as zoning is concerned.
This doesn't change, this wouldn't affect any of that though, if we made that an adjustment to 5 acres.
no, because if they're already non-conforming, they can't
Yeah.
add a building.
Yeah. So it doesn't affect anything, it just, it actually loosens the, I think it makes it more, I guess we're more compatible with, between the two.
That's what I'm looking at, or you add the less
No,
than
no,
1
we're not-
acre in ag to
we're
be
not adding.
1,200.
That's your rule.
That's what I say too, but I'm just,
It's a devil's
no,
advocate.
that'd be the other option,
I mean, that would
to
be-
keep it
Yeah.
the same.
I would prefer exactly what you stated, which was the parcel of 5 acres or less to read as part 2B, would
Right.
read that same, so we're literally there the same.
So residential, 1 acre, they put a 2,400 square
Well,
accessory building on.
and actually,
Because they can do that in ag.
They can do
Yep.
wouldn't,
Unless we don't want that, I don't know, just,
Well, it would still fall to
It's one
to
more
lot
thing.
coverage. You'd
Yes,
still have-
exactly.
You'd still have, you'd have to live within that, so any small lot would not,
right, you still have to follow, yeah.
well, and you wouldn't even need a 1 and a 2, because this top one would say all districts or whatever, because they'd be exactly the same, because this C should probably be in both anyway. Why is it only an ag that you would need a application for 4,000 feet or above? Shouldn't you need that in the R1, R2, and LR districts too?
Or they're just saying it's just not allowed, period.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But why aren't they
There,
allowed? If you
well,
have
that's
like
the thing,
a,
you go back to the whole, why it's so
Right.
clear, I mean, and you look at R1 up there, north, where
Yeah,
we're
there's some
at,
huge
there's
parcels.
enormous parcels.
Right,
there,
and
so
why
does it really
should-
matter what's the zone?
right,
It always, it's,
I'll second that idea of just combining both, if the verbiage is gonna be the exact same.
yep,
Eliminate
That's
2.
true.
just
So if we're
make it
combining the both, I understand removing 2A completely, which makes them the same, other than 1C, do you want 1C just included? Is that what you guys are thinking?
so for all would require,
we're just saying remove item 2, I guess, 2A,
Right.
B, and C, just remove that and just
All
make
of
it.
2, and then just list R1, R2, LR in the first one?
yep.
Okay.
that would work?
Simple, yeah.
Yes, much.
Well, slowly but surely, we are starting to
Make it more
peel some
clear.
of the onion away. I mean, that one, I'm looking for something that would stand out. There's really nothing, at that point, there's not any reasons for any of the others, correct? I mean, that I can think of, why would there be a difference for any of the,
You still have to meet lot coverage, that's always
Right.
been my argument, I guess, is, yeah, it might be a little big for the parcel, but you still have to meet lot coverage. So we don't regulate if they pour a great big cement pad. So why not put a building on it, put your shit inside so you can't see it.
Yes, amen.
I mean,
can we put that in there?
Right that way. When we write up resolutions, I can be flexible on wording, but, well, Steve, do this one.
I like that.
I like that.
All right, good catch, Jesse. All right, everyone comfortable with that one? We'll move on to sanitation businesses.
No, we're at 1 still. He was going back to
Oh, I'm sorry.
public hearing.
I'm moving way ahead. Okay, chapter 17. I know we found some things in there from before that.
What exactly is being contemplated here for discussion?
I think this goes back to Steve had, someone came in and they made a minor adjustment on what they wanted to change from the originally approved site plan.
That was the building size.
Yes, yeah, and
Okay.
because of that, it had to come back to
That's
us.
the waste disposal, maintenance, building.
Yep. So we're trying to give him a little more.
Yeah,
And some minor stuff.
clean up the process a little.
Yeah, so they don't have to go 2 meetings, necessarily get the
Yeah.
first meeting and, yeah.
Because that was a 7% change.
It was 7% building size change, and we were limited at 5 in our zoning, so then we changed that to 10.
And that has already been enacted, correct? That was when
Yeah.
we put, that had already been, so he is now up to 10%. But then there was other things in here, I know. Casey, you had brought up one about,
The increase in land area.
Yeah.
So that's one, his item number 1 here was that if it wouldn't require our review if they had an increase in land area, only if there was a decrease in land area.
I still think that's a good idea. Getting more land just will make it usually fit a lot better, so.
Right. Yep.
And number 2, that was you, Jesse, saying that the
It's
lighting and signage
minor,
are already
yeah.
covered in other places, so.
right, you know.
Yeah. I am curious about this. Zoning ordinances can be used to waive an application fee. That sounds like I don't know how complicated that would be, where it would go. I feel good about it. I mean, I feel bad that these people have to pay $250 because they got one bigger garage door.
Right.
It just seems so silly, and especially if we're letting the zoning administrator handle more things. I feel like either the fee should be much, much smaller or waived altogether. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I don't understand that sentence either.
I don't know where you put it in, or what, I don't know if he would give us a draft of what he was thinking, or,
Yeah, I'm not sure on more of the specifics,
Okay.
what he's thinking, or if he's looking on feedback on which direction to go specifically. And so, I mean, the stuff can be waived. I think it's probably a good idea to have something pretty objective and firm and straightforward in the ordinance for that.
Right.
If we wanted to make it like, we could do something like a percentage. There could be just a flat amount. It could be a list of things where if it's an adjustment that's done administratively, there just is no fee. It could be any combination of those.
there's a very detailed what can be done administratively. So maybe we went along the path of those things that are specifically already listed in here would be, the fee would be waived if it was administrative. As we read that and read it.
Mhm.
'Cause there's 2 different sections where it is.
So 1711 is the procedures for administrative
Thank you.
site plan review. On page 1710.
Oh, 1712 is where it talks about what might, yep, C. So though, I mean, maybe those could be the things that we would waive and there would be no fee.
So would that end up being something like no fees for administrative approvals, or is it no fees just for the things listed there, which there's administrative approvals other than that?
I would say just for this stuff where they've already paid their fee to do site plan review, things like that, and we're just trying to get the ball rolling, right? Because then they want to change one little thing like that, I guess.
Okay, so adjustments, right.
For somebody that's already paid a fee and been through the process, I guess that would make sense to me.
Because I don't think there are any, I think it lists every minor, because it says minor changes shall consist of only the following. So I think anything that's not in here is not considered minor, so.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it says, E says, if the change requested is not a minor change under the terms of subsection C, then it shall be deemed a major change. So.
Yeah, so I would think just for those items would be fair. Kind of what Jeff was getting at too, though, is like other administrative stuff, like people come and want a temporary camping permit or
Oh.
something for $30, right? You're talking about that, we don't want to leave all those.
Right.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
stuff.
Just, yeah, changes in approved site
We
plans
need
or whatever.
$600.
Changes in
$50, how we need-
approved site plans.
Yes, minor
that are
changes in approved,
Specifically listed as minor changes.
yes, yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Just so that I know where we are here, I'm still gonna, Steve write up the minutes and work on these resolutions and everything.
Right.
But there's a couple of things here, so there's the number 1, subsection 3, which will be changed to only require planning commission review for a decrease in land area, but not an increase, which would be reviewed administratively. Is everyone
Yeah.
fine with that? Anyone have any objections?
That sounds no.
That one wants to be written up, all right?
Yeah.
Subsections 8 and 9 will be removed so that changes in lighting or signage should be approved administratively.
Yes.
You want that done? Okay, we can do that. And then for fees, the changes in approved site plans that are listed as minor will not be required a fee if they can be approved administratively.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Next thing, Canard.
I'm just reading through this stuff. Checking my email.
It's his deal.
That's okay.
In one in there, did it change building size up to 5% of total floor area? Is that a minor, or we make that 10?
We did change that to 10 already.
But that's not okay.
Are the books pretty well up to date? I mean, these changes we've made on some of these pages like that. I know we-
No, the last one was October 7th. Those are the last new pages we've gotten, so
We
So
might,
there've been a few adjustments.
there have been a
Yeah.
few adjustments since then.
we can ask them just to print.
Print the adjustments.
Yeah, the adjustments, we can put that in there. I think that would be, and then if this is one that we decide we're gonna move forward with, again, we'd have to get another public hearing on it and bring, these are all pretty small, minor things. I don't think I can't see people sitting at home going, how dare they? Can't believe they're, no pitchforks, I don't think, sitting out there, but,
Yeah, and Steve would probably write those up in a single resolution.
yeah. That'd be simple. Do that, and then we can have that, do all the things he has to do for that, for the hearing, or the posting it, and.
Yeah, and then we can look at next week, get you guys some of the new things to update the books.
Yeah.
But we need a bit of a better system for that as well, which I've talked with Municode of this. Some municipalities use it so that they're updated, their online stuff is always up to date instead of falling behind like that. I don't know if it would work better for printing or not as well.
I mean, having this, a hard copy is nice for the meetings.
It is.
But the problem you have is that it's not always accurate. The stuff we have in here may be the old stuff, and we found that in a couple of the meetings where we didn't have them complete even. There was some of the pages that were missing from one person's, and I know last time that they took them, they took our books, and Lorraine did, and then just had everybody pick your book back up, and it was, the
Right.
changes were done. And that was, I don't know how long that is that a big task for somebody here? Is it better just to get us the pages and we knock, there's probably not that much, is there?
This
Yeah,
last
I
one,
think-
I thought was pretty easy, because they had it all listed out.
Yeah.
Take this page out, put that page in.
Yeah.
You didn't have to think about that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it it can be either way, so works as long as it ends up in there. I remember when Lorraine did that, 'cause we wanted to get the books updated.
Well,
So-
depending on when you became a member, your book wasn't the same.
Right,
And that was the other thing. We had some things that were, and that was where we were looking at things differently. So if we did it to where we're at, we don't know. I think everybody got a book. The books for Casey and probably for Todd were probably our most recent.
yeah,
So they would probably, if they got an old book and someone didn't change it, they may have one that was already behind when they got it. So even the changes we may have put in there.
right.
Not exactly
No,
sure. So we,
mine's really updated. There's several areas in here that it says, like at the bottom, where the ordinance is updated, and
I
it's
think
like June or
Casey's and
July.
Todd's were newly printed.
Okay,
I believe they were, that's what
Yeah,
Steve
so
indicated.
when you got them, they were completely new.
Yeah. Prior to October.
Right.
Up to and including October.
well, everyone happy with that? I think that
Yes.
sounds.
Yep.
Move on to the sanitation businesses. And the only standards that I was able to find for sanitation businesses were related to waste disposal and processing sites such as landfills, incinerators, and recycling centers. Sanitation businesses that we have in mind are waste collectors and septic services that only transport waste material off-site without storage or disposal of waste material at their facilities. We will be able to classify them as transportation terminals. Instead of adding a separate special use category to the zoning ordinance, I recommend expanding the existing framework to specifically allow sanitation businesses as transportation terminals. Following changes should be made to the standards found in section 16. Do we even have any we don't have any real sanitation business that collect it and bring it back to their site. Everybody is pretty much a transportation.
Right.
oh yeah, you can't store waste
So-
that,
I guess,
If they did, it'd be a result of something wrong with their equipment. They couldn't offload it.
right.
Or move the equipment.
so we need to modify the definition to specifically allow for trucks involved in the off-site transportation of waste material into the definition.
The 1656 impound lots?
No, transportation terminal.
I must
It's on
have a really old
page
version.
1647.
Yeah.
It's the one right before that, though. What's yours before that? Because vehicle impound lots in mine is 1657.
I'm 55.
Oh.
Transportation terminal.
55, a theater, auditorium, banquet hall, and similar places example.
So yeah, yours is different.
Huh.
Is that one you have saved on your computer? Is that how you're accessing that?
Yeah. 20.
So yeah, that's something somewhere.
Yeah, February 18th and 21 is when I come on
Okay. Yeah, I'll write that down for you.
it. It's probably in there. All right. Back in the right spot.
I like like Steve's suggestions. It seems very logical. Not being overly complicated. They're gonna park them, they're going to maintain them, power wash them.
Isn't that what they're doing at Derby right now? Derby,
Yeah, with Chester's, I think it is, right? The old blueberry farm? No, Derby's,
It's right at the right around the corner from Pillin and M120, right on M120 on the right.
Chester's moved out to a blueberry farm somewhere, didn't they?
Oh, they did?
No, he bought one.
Well, they were,
But
Part
he-
bought one, moved all the stuff up there, I was told.
they were having the work done by Derby.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about
Yeah,
now.
and I remember they were being parked out there, and there was some,
It's my neighbor, and he's in my golf league, and the blueberry farm was an investment, you know, and so on, but he had been keeping this equipment where Dave was trying to describe,
yeah.
right on 120 behind the building.
Yeah. Because he had a,
Dual usage.
he had to meet some of the criteria, I remember from the disagreement that we had something brought forward on that, where the neighbor,
Oh,
yeah, there was, they had pictures and there was the smell, and they were bringing up, it was a pretty contentious,
They were in there quite a bit.
so I'm not sure that it was a big deal. I mean, to me, this would be a way to handle it. I think it would clean that up pretty easily. Adding it in there, he just changes the definition and then adds in those.
That part of 120 is sort of a Heinz 57 of usage. There's residential right next to that
It's all
lot.
that spot zone.
Commercial in front, and it's,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. It's kind of a mess, but Ray's dad used to own that building. She told
Oh,
me
really?
years ago. It's one of those Heinz 57 buildings that sort of has a life of its own. It just, it's a little
Yeah,
gas
I think
station.
that makes sense.
Is it?
Somewhere.
It kind of looks like a gas station. There's a canopy there. That old Buick's been sitting there under it since I've lived here.
He painted it red and white on the bottom. He did
It's
some.
primer gray.
He wants it, adding a section that prohibits the on-site storage of waste material. So there's our, again, the thing that we were concerned about was having things brought back with.
Yeah.
So I think it covers a lot of the things we've dealt with in the past. I think it was pretty well. Anybody disagree or any other?
It's good.
Everybody sound good?
I think it's a simple place to put it.
One thing, it penalizes anybody in terms of their existing locations or use, or the terminology is much more clear. Yeah.
We're gonna have the definition of waste material. So if there's,
Oh, yes.
you know, I get the idea of garbage. You know, somebody takes a leftover chicken carcass and throws it in the garbage. Somebody has the recycling now that's got clean plastics in it, and there is the recycle center, for example, last year, the recycle center in Grand Rapids, where all the recycling was going to shut down for a month. And so they had like 6 trucks full of recycling waiting there to go to the recycle center versus driving it up to the landfill and just throwing it away. Because of that's how the customers are recycling. So as I look at waste material,
That could be, yeah. It's plutonium and, sludge.
But I think you get that sometimes out of, like, if you have like a waste truck and it's sitting there, and like there's some stuff dripping out of it, which could be water, or it could be waste material. I think that's where you get some of the concern when you're dealing with waste. Is this ooze, will it make me a Ninja Turtle? What exactly is it?
Absolutely.
so I think just some type of definition. If we want it to be all materials that are collected from homes or.
Yeah, that makes sense. As I say, you can't, I think the way they stated with Chester's was they said you couldn't, the vehicles were not returned to that site with material in it. I mean, anything, so they were literally, they start out the morning empty, they go do their thing and come back empty. And I think that's what they were trying to get to, is how do you keep it so that, to word that, I guess, to save adding a section that prohibits the on-site storage of waste material. It's really not. I think that's already in there, isn't it? You can't store waste material.
That's pretty open-ended too. I
Yeah,
mean,
you could-
you could just say, well, I'm not storing it. I don't have on-site storage, I'm waiting for transportation. So I'm not even sure if we need to add more than that. It kind of leaves it open-ended either way. Like if you want to start like, hey, you've been storing that too long, now this is, because I mean, we have protocols for if people are violating ordinances. I think that would probably be sufficient for anybody who is, because it wouldn't raise anyone's hackles to be there for a month, maybe even two if you had bins of recycling. I don't think anyone would say anything, but if they did say something, then at least there's a protocol already. I hate to overcomplicate it by making definitions that are overcomplicated also.
If you try to define waste, it could get very complicated.
Anything you try to define.
Right, because you just said stuff you
People are
removed from
very
people's house, well, my recycling was removed from my
Just give us
house.
something to pick apart.
So that would kind of be waste, even though it's recycling.
Well, it's true, I mean, people throw out needles into the garbage, they
Sure.
throw out drugs and medications, all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, and that's what you get into, that it should be hazardous waste, but it ends up in household garbage.
Right.
Mhm, the landfill.
I kind of leaving it a little more open-ended. That way we can say, you're storing waste, or overlook people who are storing recycling because of a situation.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if the businesses in that industry have to be inspected, or, you know, they must have a license of some sort, but you would think that when it comes to those matters of, you know, every once in a while, just an inspection, what's in that truck and how much of it's biology versus
I don't think so.
There's anything.
plastic.
I would run your business, and once in a while you get somebody kind of nosing around, like if they see the barrel outside or something. but they ask-
Like a restaurant would have their kitchen inspected, kind of thing. I don't know. It would seem like they would, but
They don't.
they probably don't. No.
You know, the Derby thing is the one that comes to my mind the most, because it was a very contentious thing between a neighbor and the business owner. And what they said was coming back, and the smell was terrible, and they had people that signed it that said the smell was terrible. Then they had people who signed it that said it wasn't terrible. So then you had, well, I like that neighbor, I don't like that neighbor. So,
Yeah.
And then, you know, it got to, we got into a definitive thing, and I remember it ended up falling apart. The guy even bought the property behind him at another site so that he couldn't park his trucks on that side of the lot. So, I mean, it really got particular in that case. So, but I think the waste material, is that,
Just as long as we're, like, everybody knows that people are gonna interpret that differently. You get
Yeah.
a roll-off company that,
For sure.
you know, buys the lot next door to wherever in the mill in there, and all of a sudden they've got 15 bins of shit out there because they don't have enough money to pay their landfill bill, so they're just storing it until they make some cash. There's the possibility of how do we want to interpret that?
It stumps to needles. One word, but
that
you
kind of.
might want to avoid that.
But that kind of just comes down to enforcement. I mean, it really does. And honestly, we have to remember that the reason we're talking about this sanitation business is because the planning commission approved them to build in that location, and it was a good fit. So it doesn't necessarily mean the next sanitation business that wants to build an R1 gets approved if it's not a good fit. So, yeah,
That is very appropriate, yeah, what you just said.
I guess the definition, trying to define, we could, do you feel, everyone, do you feel waste material is the best way to go then, just leave it that, and then leave it for the interpretation of enforcement?
yes, because then they can say recycling. Clean recycling is not nearly as bad. I hate to bring this up, but I mean, we have 4 dumpsters that get dumped every week at the campground, but we have a recycling dumpster that gets dumped on as-call. So I guess technically we are storing waste material. But it's clean recycling, and we're just waiting
It's
for
not
the,
affecting.
and it's not affecting anything, and it doesn't smell, and our neighbor, he really doesn't have any room to move or talk. So, yeah, I don't want it to get, we're not really storing waste, we are storing recycled material that's going to be recycled. Because you know, recycling, like, you have to have it clean or they don't even take it, so it's, I like to think of it as just plastic that's going on to a better life.
Our experience so far, we're very fortunate, I guess, with your in-laws and with Chester's. We have had no one storing full trucks anywhere. We've had no enforcement issues. I think it's,
Fire hazard.
yeah, and,
Yes, it's a bad idea to begin with, so.
you know, if you do that in general, the more you store your trucks like that, the worse it is to clean them.
Yes.
You know, so I think maybe we just go with the waste material and
Yep.
kind of go.
If somebody's a problem, we'll address it.
All right, move on to clean up wording of sections 6-5C and 9-5C. In order to clean up the language of the sections to be more clear regarding a cumulative total of 300 square feet, I recommend changing subsection 2 of both of these sections to read, not more than 300 square feet of decks and walkways as described above shall be excluded from the lot coverage. Shall exclude, must be.
There's a missing D there.
Yes.
I don't know, it's like break the sentence anyway.
No, I feel like it might be a double negative or something.
Are you guys picking on Steven?
Well, he's not here. Tony taking care of his sick
It didn't
wife.
flow as well as I was
What's up
hoping.
with this writing, Steve? I don't think that's great.
Because I thought that he was just gonna do, because it says right now, the maximum square footage of decks and walkways described as excluded above shall not exceed 300 square feet. I really thought he was just gonna add cumulative or total or something to just a word or two to clean up that definition instead of changing it.
It does seem like you could do 300 square feet in
Max-
total.
yeah, in
or
total.
Square hundred, or 300 square feet cumulative.
That's what I
I
thought.
have an old page.
Oh, yeah, do you?
I must have one.
I do too, I have an old one.
It's 6.5, C, or C2.
I must-
Yeah, see, my book doesn't have that either.
Okay.
Nope.
Are you just missing a page?
I think it's an old page.
Oh,
Mm-mm. Nope, that's what I have. Just that right there.
It's an old
Oh,
page that
yes.
maybe gotten taken out on one of the updates, but it shouldn't have been.
oh yeah, your C has no, it says 15%.
Yeah.
And it actually is now 20 with 1 and 2.
Yeah, I have an old page too.
You have 20, I have 50 years, it's newer than mine,
Yeah,
I don't have the
yeah,
1 and 2.
So what we're trying to do is
I
make
thought I
it,
kept up with all those things.
So did I.
Because you could read it 2 ways. You could read it that it
What
was
section?
300
Yeah.
square
It's
feet per deck
6.5,
could be
Yeah.
excluded.
6.5
Chapter six.
Or
C2.
300 square feet. For decks
Does your
total
C
on
have a
the whole
1 and
property.
2?
And just the way Steve and I read it, which we.
Yeah, I have A,
we
B,
figured
C,
you kind of
one,
read it
two.
both
Okay,
ways.
so
Yeah,
yours
ours
is the same as
both
mine,
ways,
which
yeah.
is
So it
big
wasn't
current.
clear, but it seemed
maximum
to
square
me to
footage.
read more 300 per deck, which would be odd. I thought maybe it was written that way because you could have one in the front yard, one in the backyard, something like that. But in some way, it has to be cleaned up so that it's clear. Because the
Yeah, it's not-
enforcement and the rulings on unclear things gets lawyers involved, and it's great for lawyers. So when they write this type of stuff, they usually write it not clear.
Correct. I've been saying
It's their
that
job.
for
And that's-
years.
Keeps you business.
Everybody laughs, they're like, huh?
Well, that's why I write a decent amount of our stuff. When I do resolutions and contracts, I get it basically done, the contracts I've done with the county. I write the contract, And then I give it to the lawyer and I say, what are the red flags in this? Usually there aren't any, but a couple of times. So that works pretty good. And then I tell the lawyers to delete certain things that are unclear, like the word inert. Lawyers love that word.
That's a beauty.
Useless.
Jeff, does this say that me, the residential homeowner, can build a deck, including the space in the walkway, up to 300 square feet? That's my limit. Is that really what this is saying?
And that amount is excluded from calculating lot coverage. That's what this is over.
I have a 9.5C, 1, 2, and 3.
I don't, my 9.5 is wrong.
Because you calculate
it's
lot
missing.
coverage, so it's a
There's
certain
no-
percentage.
The footprint of
It's
your,
missing the rest
your
of number
home
one.
and your
What is
garage.
this?
Yep,
Oh,
how
I'm
much you're
missing a
covering
page.
for shedding water, that type of
Right.
thing. And
I'm
so,
missing 9.
for some
three.
reason, at some
And a
point,
page.
over something, it was included that you could build a 300 square foot deck without being included in
In
lot coverage.
addition
So
to
what does
that
that say?
In the lake
footprint.
residential.
In
Oh,
addition to
basically
that
the exact
footprint, I
same
can
thing.
do
Yes.
that.
And so that, there's a bunch of ways to go on this. Because that could be
So the first thing
illegal.
that comes to my
There could be
mind,
no,
Yes, it's
Yeah,
exactly the
exactly.
same.
but
Yep.
Verbiage.
there's a few houses on Twin Lake that are large, decent, large-sized lots, I'll go that far, even not on Twin Lake. A 10 by 30 deck's not ridiculous, and so it sounds almost restrictive if you really wanted to
Mine's right.
have the
So really what we want to say is
Botanica
that
of
you may
decks.
exclude up to 300 feet of deck from your lot coverage.
Right, you get like a free 300 square feet. Total though, not per
Yeah.
deck.
Yeah,
Can you imagine? Everyone would build it at $299 and be like, oh, these are my 12 decks, but they're all under 300.
was-
I mean, that would be a nightmare.
That was Stephen's interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Is that we had you could literally, they said, well, then you could build all these decks under 300 feet and then you
Right.
could cover your lot with
and the
decks.
way I read it before, that's the way I would have read it.
And that's what, I think that was what we saw, was we had holes in this where you could interpret it. And the lawyer said, you're both right.
My house has concrete steps in the front, and it's in disrepair. They need to be removed, and I'd like to put a deck with steps, kind of a porch. So is a porch a deck? Or, so there's other snags, I think, here.
It's the
The
material.
10 by 30
right?
sounds a little
Material
restrictive for those big custom homes.
Well, yeah, lot coverage then.
Well,
Right,
Right,
it's not saying they can't have it, it just it's not excluded, so
from the
they
lot
better make
coverage
sure they have a
calculation.
nice lot.
It only has to do with lot coverage calculation.
you're allowed 300 square feet of deck that doesn't go into your calculation of your lot coverage.
Right.
Okay.
So
But
they're
wasn't
saying,
that increased, you were saying, is it at 20 now in the lot residential or the lake residential?
Yeah, his says 15 and mine
Well, that
says
was
20.
the lot coverage, yeah.
Yeah, that's
for
what he was
our lot.
asking.
Mine says
Yep.
20.
So that has
That
been
already has been increased.
by 5% as well.
What if it just said the maximum square footage of all decks and walkways described as excluded above shall not exceed 300 square feet total?
Or
So adding all in
300
total, or, yeah, that's true.
That's what I was thinking.
That's a better interpretation of what's already here.
I think we need that cleaned up, that's where we need it to be the same language for both of them, it just needs to,
And they're both worded the same right now.
Yes, they are
It doesn't
both
say
worded
that
the
it's
same.
cumulative. It's-
Yeah.
So yeah, back to the drawing board, I'm wording that one.
Okay.
I think what he wrote is actually a little more confusing than what's already written.
Decks and sheds, probably the most abused, non-permitted item in the township, right?
Every township.
We gotta come up with a name for that category. You know?
I like these ideas still, where you have one day a year where you can build whatever the heck you want.
Oh,
You
Dave!
get one day, like the purge. The purge of Twin Lake, and then just see what people
But for
can throw
construction.
up. And just imagine the surprises the next day.
The construction unpurged.
Yeah.
No, because that'd be so unfair, because all one person would have to do is hire like the Amish, and they would build an entire city in one day. So,
that's true.
I mean, I've seen them put up pole barns in just a day. They get out there at 6 AM and it's completely done by like dark.
All right, we'll scrap that idea.
Yeah, nice try though.
Yeah, there's
So the idea is, we want to reword
Yeah.
Stephen's sentence.
I think you just add the word total or cumulative to what's already in the book, because, well, like my section 9 is right.
Right.
The residential.
So the total max square footage of all this decks and walkways, all combined?
It's the exact same sentence in the
Well, yeah,
RI
like what if it
district.
said the cumulative square footage of all decks and walkways described as excluded shall not exceed 300 square feet? Instead of putting maximum, maybe if it said the cumulative square footage of all decks.
I like the word cumulative.
With a sum,
That's a
yeah.
word.
Then you get a wheelchair ramp, turn to cheek.
I can, yeah, I mean,
That's another,
Well, but it's just for the lot coverage calculation, not whether you're
Right.
allowing a
Right.
deck.
you can still build as big a deck as you want. You
Yep.
just can't deduct more than 300 off your lot coverage.
Right.
It's just a freebie they're tossing out to
Which,
people.
why is it 300, we don't know.
We don't know, but.
okay, yeah. I need more definition in there, I'll go work on that. I'm in trouble.
I think if he could include a cumulative or total or something, that it would sound better.
Yeah, just into what is
Yep.
already there.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see it actually, no kidding aside, that a little pamphlet for all the do-it-yourselfers that, reminding what needs to be permitted and what needs to be checked off on decks, pools, fences, and sheds, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, real easy to read, nothing threatening. I'll work on that next year.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
We are, the master plan, I was asked about that, kind of a side subject, but
When are we due for our next master plan?
2023,
Okay.
because I believe the last one was 2018, stuff specifically pertinent to 2019, so maybe it was close to the end of the year, but we'll hit it in 2023. Steve is doing, he did his citizen planner certification through Michigan State. He's doing the master citizen planner, because we're going to the full zoning administrator certification in February. And so his presentation that he's preparing is going to be on master plan, kind of in preparation over the next couple of years as we dive into that.
will we attempt to do that on our own this time, or are we going to use an outside?
I would prefer to do it in-house
Okay.
rather than an outside consultant like that.
It was steered very much to where, I guess it's when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That's kind of the way they approached it. is
And I
they
think
went
that's gonna be
through-
the tendency of any consultant on that.
And they went through and they bent it around where we were, and then asked us the questions. They just filled in stuff where literally it'd be insert.
Yeah, that's the
Fill in
problem
the
with the
blanks.
consultant, they already have the blueprint.
Mhm.
Right.
They'll just make it sound unique to Dalton Township and hand you a bill for a lot of money.
Because that's the recreational plan and the
Yep.
regular master plan.
Yeah, the Parks and Recreation and the master plan.
Or the reason I guess I'm asking some of that is some of this is the stuff that we would be in preparation for that, to have some of this as to what we'd like to cover with the public, to say we're really looking at, getting out what permits are required, what, I guess, like you said, an educational thing, maybe a opportunity for people to hear what, if you're planning on building a deck, I guess we could do like the Home Depot seminars, we could have you could be our expert. You handled that so well.
Me?
Yes, I think you can say, here's, if you're planning a deck.
Yeah, I can present that. What we will do in the construction field, but.
At least to tell them what's required. I mean, we've had a lot of things, we'll have the things to add into the new RV on the roadway, the certifications and things like that are going to be added in, so.
Right.
We'll have to start, I'm sure Steve will start on his list with many things to look at.
Shipping containers?
So do you think that would do it then, to use the existing sentence and then just use the word cumulative in that? Okay, so instead of replacing maximum with cumulative, the cumulative square footage of decks and walkways described as excluded above shall not exceed 300 square feet? Is that clear enough?
I think so, as long as Steve's okay with it. I mean, he's the one that's got to deal with it every day, I guess. I mean,
to an extent, you know, let them have
Mhm.
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah,
you
I
want.
think
I
that's
mean, that's
pretty
just a
clear.
suggestion, I guess.
We can make it total cumulative, we really want to
Yeah.
emphasize that thing.
Not to exceed,
The maximum total cumulative?
Seems slightly
That'll
extravagant.
drill.
Seems like
Get the point
overkill a
across.
little bit.
How about we throw
Word
in,
Uber.
shall not unduly exceed.
Oh,
That would make it very flexible because the word unduly, and it's in that same situation. Unduly just doesn't belong in zoning.
So the total cumulative square footage of decks and walkways described as excluded above shall not exceed 300 square feet. And then we leave it at that, and that can be in both sections.
If he's happy with that, I
Okay,
guess.
I can run that one by him, I think that sounds good. All right. Moving on to shipping container homes.
there's no such thing as shipping container homes. There's dwellings cut out of steel boxes. You know, it's not that's my problem with this, not, you know, let's not assume it's a thing, it's an idea. The fire department, I think, would have the most input on this, fire department, codes, plumbing, electrical, whatever. This is a weird one though, I know, I can see it coming.
Have you seen some of them that are built out there?
I have, I've seen a lot of photos, I haven't, you know, been in
I
them,
have
or
too.
swung the door open or anything, but.
Right.
You know, have you been to that Italian restaurant downtown?
Mhm.
Capote's?
Yeah.
That is a shipping container restaurant. And if you walked into it, you would not know you were inside. I mean, the things you can do to it, the ones you're talking about, I know that they'll put two on top of each other, one on top of, and then you actually end up with like a two-story, and it's like tiny homes.
There's a house like that out by the lake, and I think it must be in Fruitland, I'm guessing, and it looks pretty nice.
that surprises, just kidding. That surprises me, I mean, if it's good enough for Portland. Because they're usually really restrictive about things, I'll have to check it out. I've never seen one in person.
I was driven by it out there, right out by the lake, somewhere,
Like on scenic?
I believe so.
Okay.
It says here, we have it prohibited in all residential districts. And it gives the definition: for the purpose of this section, steel shipping containers shall mean a prefabricated metal structure consisting primarily of a steel exterior which is manufactured to transport goods. Personal storage unit shall mean any prefabricated structure designed for the temporary storage of property. So we have a pretty good definition of it. Well, and I mean, pretty hard to tear into that. But I guess what he's looking for, whether or not it is in the intent of the zoning ordinance to prohibit or permit shipping container homes.
I would say this ordinance in front of us, yes, was
But
always intended.
why is it in accessory buildings? Why is it under the heading of accessory buildings if it's meant
That's
to be the
probably-
main home?
Good point, it's probably its first, most practical use of a
Like a shed.
decommissioned steel box, an intermodal
I
box.
think it's because they're prohibiting it from ever being in any other residential district. You can't put it in a residential district and say, you can't have it here.
Can you have it here, behind your house as a
No.
shed?
No.
That's-
Oh, it says it's allowed only in commercial and industrial zone.
Okay, I didn't read it.
Which, we just changed that not too long ago, the commercial or industrial zone. We've changed that in the last year.
I think I remember that discussion.
Yeah.
Because somebody wanted one somewhere. There was never anything in here about those containers whatever is there.
Livable dwelling space.
4.2
4I there, where it specifically says steel shipping containers, blah, 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 prohibited in all districts. That paragraph got added. When Tina was the zoning administrator. And she was busting my chops about having steel shipping containers in front of our shop. And I said, too frickin' bad, because the zoning ordinance does not say you cannot have them. And so it got added. And she told me I had to move them, and I said, I'm not moving them because they were there before it said anything in the zoning ordinance. And she said, at least move them out back, so, because I've had a phone call about it before. I says, okay, and that's what I did, and I was handling it. But that's when that paragraph got added. Before that time, there was never anything in here about steel shipping containers.
You're the cause.
Zero. No. No.
I cannot believe
But
that.
Tina was.
Well, I can't believe you guys restricted them in the Ag RC though. Some
I
of those.
wasn't
Oh,
wanting
you
to.
were-
To it is.
oh, you-
I was here.
You were here,
I
but,
was here, but that's how that whole thing got, that's how that paragraph got added. And I don't know if you remember the chair that was here before, but she did
oh
like
yes, of
anything.
course.
An underground
She
shed.
not cut that tree down right there, she wants more
That's-
planted. You know, so
Makes sense.
that's how that paragraph ended up. I don't remember if you did that or not, I can't remember.
That was,
I think there's just a whole lot of space between, like if your business had them for a tool shed, awesome, that'd be perfect.
Well, and that's what they, so
But-
they allow you to have, I mean, you can't disallow it for like a tool shed that comes and goes and moves
Yeah,
around. But
yeah.
why don't disallow it at the time, you want to disallow it to be used for storage.
somebody had one out on M120. They did it in the front.
Mhm.
And then we had to have it moved because it needed to be, there were rules on where it had to be and they didn't have it in the proper location.
What I mean by a lot of space is between the award-winning, reclaimed, repurposed Architectural Digest steel house and Joe's garage that his uncle wants to live off. You know, there's just so much there that I've seen pictures of those beautiful German-made, out in township land, it would really have to be monitored. I
I'm
would
gonna
say.
guess, based on the current state of shipping containers, we will probably see an influx of them hitting a
Well,
lot of places
yeah.
around.
Exactly.
So I think getting out in front of this,
We gotta do
would
something.
be we have to have something that gives a constructive plan. And I don't think putting it in and saying you can't have them anywhere is a good plan.
I don't think so at all, because, for example, like, if you take the siding that one of those is made out of, nothing in here says I can't side my house with that. Or something exactly like, I can side my house with that material and paint it that ugly red and write Chinese writing on it. And it doesn't say you can't do that. If it meets the structural and building code, yeah, you could do that.
It's all the other
you know,
stuff.
and-
Jeez, this is so
The
restrictive.
installation
And there
of
is-
wiring, plumbing.
Well, and as long as you meet the building code, yeah, I mean, you have to meet all that
Footers.
stuff. I mean, you gotta meet the structural integrity, the foundations, the
Yeah.
energy code, you still gotta
Right.
meet all that if it's a residential
Right.
structure.
When you read this, you actually realize how restrictive everything is. Because it talks about you can have a shipping container in those districts, so the zoning administrator may authorize the temporary use of one personal storage unit for up to 30 days. Like, would it have killed him to put two? I mean, what if you, seriously, my brother just moved from Ohio, he loaded 2 different storage containers, one with stuff going to their current house, because they're building a house here, and the other one to go to a storage facility. And he wouldn't have been allowed to do that, because it says 1 storage unit. But it's only 30 days, 2 storage units isn't gonna kill someone in 30 days.
You've done it 30 days.
I know, it took us like
Can't
4
do a
months to
storage
move out of our
unit.
house when we
I mean,
moved.
I
Huh,
agree.
this is, wow, well, plus I literally cannot believe the Ag RC is in here. That means Blueberry Farms can't have shipping containers that sit there to store anything.
Correct.
That's
Well,
crazy.
What is the real value? It's a lockable, secure,
And it's
dry-
wonderful because it
dry-
moves when you want it to.
dry box
Yes.
that sits portable. Well, what's the value, what value does it offer a home or a dwelling? I don't know if it's less money or not, I don't know.
It's just cool, probably, to me, it's just cool.
It could be architecturally
Right.
pleasing.
Yeah,
Maybe there's something to be said about lower maintenance, you know, great epoxy coating and lifetime, you know, but the value, I just don't know how that weighs out. Not that it matters, but,
Well, would you want us, I mean, the thing is, you're gonna see them, if we allow them anywhere, you start seeing them, it says not in residential, which does that make sense? I don't know, because there could be, like you said, it could be a good use for and then again, you're gonna see it on,
for your construction business, Jesse, perfect. I could see that, 100%. Moving your gear around
A lot
without
of
being
stuff, though. A lot of stuff,
stolen.
they fit.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them out there, and there's not gonna be any less of them. You know.
How do you write in a way that allows for a good use, whether it's commercial use or an ag use,
Ag use.
but it doesn't have one sitting in somebody's front yard in the middle of a subdivision?
you know, if it's painted, if it is maintained, if it has some of the things on it that we would do for any other dwelling, you know, really, we don't require, I don't know.
yes, I was just gonna say that, because like, you can't have, your accessory building can be extremely ugly, but unless you're 250 feet off the road, it's in your backyard. I mean, you could do the same thing, you could have a shipping container, but it had to be in your back lot or your whatever, unless you were off the road so far, just like any other, so, because it seems weird that you couldn't have a nice shipping container by your house, like behind your house, but you could have a
Right.
god-awful accessory building
Right.
that now.
You can have one of the
like,
20-year-old little garden sheds that you
Yeah.
never maintained, and the roof leaks and the thing's falling down.
Correct,
Those are okay.
but you can't have a
But you can't
shipping,
take a shipping
Right.
container and repaint it, and you want it to look
I don't
nice.
really like that.
I don't either, I've never liked it. I mean, I think those things are just, they're useful, and
They are useful.
And they're,
And they sometimes are a lot cleaner.
sometimes, you know, depending on the shipping market, there can be gluts of them, and people can get a good deal on them.
You're gonna get good deals on them coming up here.
No, they're all in the bottom of the ocean.
I tell you what, you got them coming over now.
They keep
aren't
falling
going
off
back, I can
ships.
tell you that. They're coming over. If they say Dollar Tree on them, I apologize now. But,
Shouldn't it be $1 and a quarter tree now?
and it will be. That might be what you get a shipping container for, too.
And, you know, I mean, everybody's on the green movement thing, right? So why not let somebody build a house that
Right.
shipping containers instead of hauling the thing all over the countryside, just to put it in a furnace to melt it down to make something else.
I can see cutting the doors off the top, so you have your, you can open up the top of the.
Right.
It's useful.
Have the swinging.
It's not as if they're not subjected to all the building codes. I mean, you can't just do whatever you want with a shipping container. I mean, but I've seen, you know, yeah, they can be really nice. I mean, you could, exactly like what you were saying earlier, you could build a very, very modern looking home that looked like a shipping container and it's stick built, and that's okay, but it's not okay if the inside is also steel. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Wayne
So to fall
County-
under an accessory building, it's gotta fall under lot coverage,
Yes.
even though it's a temporary structure, if they're
That's-
using it as a storage facility.
It
it's still
says
going to be-
I know, it's just in here.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the commercial or industrial area, they have to be screened, there are setbacks, you can't use it for advertising, you can't put signs on it. It talks about lot coverage, it talks about all kinds of things.
And that's all fine and dandy and
So,
normal, right?
I just don't see why we're restricting them in the other zoning.
Well, she put that in there because it used to say you couldn't use, and it still does, that you can't use like an old semi-trailer for storage. And it said something about semi-trailer and similar structures. And that's where I said, no, it's nothing to do, it's not a semi-trailer. And then that's when that's what she had.
It says right, J4
She
is,
didn't like it.
it shall be on the same property as the principal use and included in the calculation of overall lot
Right.
coverage. So it makes sense, it's not like you're getting an, you know, accessory building and you're still lot
Right.
coverage, it's still lot coverage.
Right.
So, I mean, whatever you put on there, we don't restrict, like you said, the ugly sheds. You don't have to come in and go, I don't like that color, you can't do that, or this is, we have to be somewhat permissive in this case to say what, you know, trust the person that is bringing it in. If you're bringing it in, maybe we have something that says it needs to be painted or something that it doesn't say, you know, like you said, the Chinese letters or something on there that,
Costco.
And the person that has the $300,000 house in a subdivision isn't gonna put one in their front yard anyways.
I'd
And
be,
if they do, the neighbors are gonna harass them so bad, they're gonna move.
yeah.
Right?
They're gonna-
I'd be interested in, as far as, I mean, the intent of this was us to discuss for housing. I would love to see what Fruitland Township has in their zoning ordinance, if he
That'd be
wants to
good.
get that info. Because obviously they have a house that's made out, or maybe it's just designed to look like one.
It could be, it's like a two-story structure, and it looks like shipping container.
I would love to know what they have in there then.
Probably
They-
nothing.
Oh,
Windows,
Oh,
That'd be
doors.
so they-
that'd be the best of
Okay,
having nothing,
I mean,
right?
that's
Because
true.
it don't matter.
right along,
Right.
I mean, Seaway, they have those, right where the new dispensaries are.
there's so
They were-
many of them.
There
we
were a
might have
couple
to
of
be more
those,
specific.
they were made out of shipping containers, that's what they were,
Oh,
they stacked them there.
Okay,
So they have it in there, and you can't tell that from the other buildings that are there. So it doesn't stand out either remarkably as being different, it's, you can meld it into a workable project. And I guess if you live within all the things in here, you know, the things that are in here, it needs to be followed up by whatever's in it needs to be to the review of the fire chief.
no,
You know, which I guess makes sense, but no one's looking in my shed to see what I have in there. You know, I guess, I don't understand where some of these things are, and you still want some of the oversight on it, but I'm not saying you need to come look at what's in my shed, but I'm just telling you, there's not anything remarkable in any of those things, but, you know.
Residential's a whole different.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're saying, is that we restricted it to where it's not allowable anywhere, you know, pretty much, and then we have all these restrictions on it on top, and nobody would touch it. And I think we need to be, somehow move that needle quite a bit.
So you kind of want some comparables to look at
yes,
there?
that'd be great.
Is that the- kind of where we're at on that?
Yeah, and I think the shipping container homes would fall into that, and we'd see what Fruitland has for that, and we could follow up with that.
You work for the boxcar children, so clearly it's a good idea.
And if they don't have any, if they want, we can see they have.
I'm curious to see if any other one around here has covered it by adding it, or if they're all just allowing them by
Because then
exclusion.
you just delete that, and
Yeah.
then you're all set, because then there's no intent of,
Yep.
oh, shit, deers can't be here, can't be there, or whatever, you know, they can build them. Then there's no question whether or not they're intended to be.
All right, I like that one. Everyone move forward on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, alterations to topography and storm water drainage. We're currently addressing an issue that came to light when a low-lying lot was built up with fill sand. The lot had previously received storm water from the road. Now all of that water, as well as water draining from the site, is being shed onto other properties and is allegedly flooding. This is currently being investigated and enforced by the building inspector through the International Property Maintenance Code, which prohibits drainage from being discharged in a manner that creates a public nuisance. This has raised a question on whether the zoning ordinance should require review of site drainage when significant alterations are made to the topography of any residential lot. The goal would be to require adequate drainage be installed when altering the terrain to prevent damage to neighboring properties and roads. Section 44-37A allows for changes to the topography of the lot that are reasonable in order to develop the site. It could be a good place to add any requirements for fill and drainage.
My first issue with this is there is no one at this township has the qualification. Stormwater is unreal. I mean, my husband's a certified stormwater operator by the state of Michigan, and it's not as simple as you think. And I find it offensive that the road commission is like, oh yeah, the lot had previously received some stormwater from the road. That's the road commission not maintaining. That should be going into ditches or drainage, not onto somebody else's lot. So the fact that they're now kicking it back to the road commission just feels pretty fair. I don't like to see it on adjacent parcels, you're supposed to contain it on your own, but I just don't, when it says that we're supposed to, would require a review of site drainage when significant alterations are made, like who would do that? And I don't want the township to be hiring an engineering firm every time, but that's really the only one that's qualified
Maybe
to.
the property owner should be the one to hire and pass and get a certification that what their plan is acceptable to what your husband's, certificates say and all that, the law, or however that reads. It seems like they'd be the ones responsible, not the township. An engineer, in other words, should be able to say, it doesn't work the way it is, but if you did this, this, and this, then yes, the drainage would be proper, and they could quantify that somehow.
So the problem is, I can see that getting really expensive for the homeowner, and drainage, Jesse, is theoretical, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you do a site and the engineer designs it some way, how often do you go back, because it doesn't drain the
It
way?
doesn't work.
Yep, so I would hate for the homeowner to have to pay for something that, drainage is very, very theoretical until you actually see. We have changed so many things at the campground and rerouted things and torn up asphalt to put in extra drains because it doesn't drain the way you thought it would. Anything that's sheet drained, you can put a laser on it, but it may not do what you think it's gonna do when it, so.
Sometimes.
So and what we ended up with here, I've been dealing with this since I got in office, is since last winter, on 6th Street. And it's a little dirt road. It's not even the full width of the road. So I talked to the road commission, because I was like, why don't we just make it a real road and add some ditches? And there's really not enough space, you end up eating up everyone's yards up to their doors, and then everyone doesn't make setbacks and all this stuff. So the road commission just really isn't interested in doing projects like that preferably. So, which I get, but it's unfortunate. So it puts us in a weird place because of the building codes, and the neighbor keeps pushing it. Right? So some water goes across her land anyways, always did. She had it landscaped so that it funnels back, and then she has a drain in the far back of her property. The neighbor's house had burnt down, and he always had flooding in the basement anyways, had sump pumps, so he just brought in a ton of fill dirt and raised the whole house since he was building your house anyways. That seems very reasonable,
Yes,
right?
it does.
But he now sheds all of his water. So now the neighbors,
You can't do that.
all the neighbors
Right,
come
you
worse.
cannot,
You
you have
gotta
to be,
keep your own water on your own property.
right.
But now, what I was envisioning was there was this big dip in the road with a low-lying lot, and all the road water came down here and ran into this low-lying lot, and then they filled it. And I'm like, well, that's the neighbor's problem or the county's problem, like you're saying, that's the county's
Yes.
problem, not the landowner's problem. So, I mean, what I'm hearing though, I mean, if he's forcing all his water into somebody else's property, that's obvious. I mean, you can't do that.
Right, and so how it came
Somebody
up
needs to enforce that.
is, yeah, we're looking at it through the building codes,
Right.
because of the stuff that falls under there.
Yep.
It's apparently not the most straightforward thing, the management of the drain for this water, because some water flows anyways. So now it's just excessive that he's shedding all his water across a public road. Obviously, this other person's land, all the people around him in general, but she ends up being the lowest, so she ends up getting the most. And so what it looks like should happen is he should have like a little detention area with some more water so it dissipates over time after it retains a certain amount. I talked to him, I tried to just mediate between them and make it good, but in general, neighbors just hate each other, that's what. So no one ever wants to mediate anything, everyone just wants to win. And it just becomes a competition at that point. I had gotten close. But that's essentially where it is. So now we'd started it with Lorraine and with Troy, but it passed because the water stuff is theoretical, everything looked good, so it ended up getting passed, but then you get some big water storms after everything is constructed, after everything is done, and you realize you have this water issue, it's difficult to kind of go back on it. The township lawyer had said that you can put an ordinance, and some places do, and Troy mentioned this too, the idea of if you're bringing in something like that, where you're like raising a house a ton on your own property, you can have something in the zoning ordinance, which ends up being easier and more straightforward for enforcement purposes, at least after the fact. That you have to detain your water in some fashion, you can't damage a neighbor's property with shedding water. So that's essentially why this is coming out as an issue.
So it's not really us reviewing their plan for site drainage, it's just us checking that they have some sort of detention system that may or may
Or
not
even-
even work.
Well, what I'm seeing here, I think I see what he's saying, he just wants verbiage in there that says, you can't put your water in my property.
Right.
And if you do, I can say, you gotta fix it.
Right.
I'm not gonna
Okay.
tell you how.
We
I'm not
don't
gonna design
have
it, I'm
that
not
in
gonna
zoning.
write that.
Okay.
Which is why
I just
we're
gotta
going
tell
through
you,
the
you
building
can't do
code.
that.
Right, that makes
I think
total
it's like
sense,
that.
that there should be some verbiage.
Yep.
I mean, when you deal with the drain commission, that's the first thing she tells you, is not one drop of water can leave your parcel, so. And then you show exactly where you're gonna keep it all. That's like all commercial in
Right.
every township and area that I
So we
can
wouldn't
think
be
of.
asking them to do that, I don't care.
So we're not reviewing it and deciding whether it'll work or anything, because that's like far beyond anybody's
No,
capability.
not for every residential project or
Just saying.
anything like that. We have no verbiage in there right now
Nothing anywhere, huh?
about retaining the water that would apply in this case.
And the nice thing is, if you make verbiage that you have to retain your water, then you don't have to know ahead of time whether the system will work or not. You can go back after the fact and say, okay, you're not retaining your water, so it's time to go to Plan B.
Which is the situation we've got, where, before, hey, it could've worked, I mean, who exactly knows? It
Right.
just didn't. And, I mean, the neighbors are feuding. The one neighbor says she has video of when there was a ton of rain and it coming directly from their property, flooding across the road into hers. The other neighbor says that she has video of when it's raining hard, it flowing down the roads, not from their property, but down the roads into the neighbor's property.
But of course, no one has it before, so you don't really know what it was doing before.
Right, it's difficult to check from before.
Right.
And now the one that the complaint is made against is gonna contact her lawyers because she thinks it's harassment because it's been so long, and so she won't turn over the video evidence, so it'll be a mess, I don't know.
Does he have,
Might resolve this over 2 years total.
is the new house's soil stabilized? Like, because
I believe so.
drainage
It has
changes
grass
a
and
ton
stuff.
once you have some sort of grass and
Mm,
some
right.
sort of something.
He's looking in here, the landscaping, buffering, and fences in 44-37A reads, "The landscape and natural features shall be preserved insofar as practical by removing only those areas of vegetation or making those alterations to the topography which are reasonably necessary to develop the site." So,
But
I
he
guess
wants to add something to that.
he wants to add into that
Well,
stating,
and see, it was reasonable that he raised the house and the
Right.
basement
Right.
wasn't flooded.
Yes.
So yeah, he's
what he
needing
needs
this,
is
but-
something to say the shedding of water.
Right,
Or, or, and that's the drainage, I guess, is the, but isn't that covered somewhere? I mean, that would be, you'd think that would be somewhere where you can't, like,
He just
Very
filled in his
restrictive.
reservoir. He had one, it was called a basement.
yeah.
Under there.
I mean, yeah, I should go home and type in stormwater into the search so I can search through this whole book.
There is a little bit about site drainage right above that, that just says you have to keep it created away from your facilities.
What section are you in?
Oh, yeah, that's
So
true.
you can't put it in your trap.
4-37.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Okay, but that's in the
what'd you say
section
we're
of
looking up?
keeping horses.
Storm drainage.
Something about storm.
Nothing on storm.
Oh dear.
Maybe drainage.
Yeah, drainage will come up several times
There's
because
site drainage,
yes, this talks about horses.
Yeah, that's the first section.
Oh, I'm in the wrong section, sorry.
This one's gonna get sticky.
It's gonna just be in a general.
Yeah.
Stormwater, water runoff management.
Oh, good.
4-18 feet away.
18, thank you.
4-18 or 4.18.
Yeah, I think 21 different times it's mentioned. Draining your pool.
Must be 4.18.
No, mine's home occupations.
Yep.
I'm lost.
Yeah, I think so.
Unless it's what age you're on.
4-1-8.
Let's see.
That one may not be the best in this.
None of us can even find it.
Yeah. Number 15. Of course, that,
I don't see anything either.
So they were reasonably happy prior to the basement being filled with sand and raised. Prior to that, the neighbors were getting along, the water did what they wanted.
Apparently, it's a low water area in general. And so it's very reasonable to look at something moving forward, because it could not just be a one-off issue. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes sense to raise houses, and we have a bunch of low water areas. And so if we don't have something against them shutting onto the neighbors, it'd be.
Yeah, that's a pretty basic thing that already should be there, I guess.
Right.
If we can't find it with 4 of us searching right now, 5 of us searching right now, the chances are that being able to think that it would be reasonably accessible, I think we need to add it somewhere.
It should just be in the general provisions.
Yes, it should.
We'd looked for it before, because it's been an issue for enforcement of what would we write in the enforcement letter, what is a violation of.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't seem to be in the zoning, it seems to be in the building, it is in the building codes, but.
Right, but the building codes only really address it like for the structure, not really like
Right.
for the property.
Right, so Troy isn't normally dealing with that.
Right, the
And so-
building code says you gotta have 6 inches of slope the first 10 feet away from your house, that's it. After that, they don't care.
There are parts that apply that we've cited on this, but it would be unusual to address them. And so it leaves us in a weird position where a neighbor is shedding the water and damaging a neighbor's property, but not in a good position for enforcement on it, so it's
You gotta
gonna be.
retain your own water.
It's
That's
gonna be
just
clunky.
It should be something that we could have in there, it could be pretty basic.
Would it be adding to 4.37A, that general regulation where it does mention, topography?
Maybe.
Maybe, but I don't know, stormwater is pretty important and it can create a lot of battles, so.
So in the site plan review section, it talks about stormwater drainage. It says stormwater detention or retention and drainage systems shall be designed so that the removal of surface waters will not adversely affect the subject property, adjacent or nearby properties or public stormwater drainage systems.
Yeah.
And I believe we have a thing in there, so if it's coming to you guys for like a site review, you can even decide to say the drain commissioner has
Right.
to meet all of her qualifications. Very dangerous to do in this scheme.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that to anybody,
Don't do
that's
that to
mean.
anybody.
But if you, quite a few discussions with people. But so when it comes to you, it has to meet those qualifications, and we run into that with businesses quite a bit. And you can refer to her, and it says or, I specifically looked that up, so that we don't have to send it to her. It would have been a huge detriment to the business park out there. The various people that we're selling it to, I mean, basically all those would have fallen through probably. So that, it works on things that are coming for site reviews like that.
Yeah.
So we just need to
It sounds
expand
like-
it to include like,
You can cover that in the general
Yeah.
provisions or something. Something
That would
similar.
be all districts, right?
Yeah.
yeah, it's everywhere, you
Yeah.
have to keep your own water.
Think that's enough for Steve to go on?
Well, maybe he could find where other people put it, if they have it in a subsection with landscaping, or
Right.
if they make it their own thing.
All right, yeah. Yeah, I think that's
We should have
reasonable.
something though. Just
I'm
some
surprised there's not, because I come from a commercial, so I'm like,
Right.
they always tell me what to do with my stormwater, but I didn't realize that residential people could just drain it right out there. That's great, I'll remember that.
So I believe by counting here, we've removed 2 things tonight and only added 1. We are on the right path.
We're on it.
Going down May Day, you're ready to be the chair for next year.
We will not repeat business, we are beyond that at this point. Everyone pick up your bumper stickers at the end of tonight's
Yeah.
meeting.
You didn't know we got a campaign going already?
I love it. You just like being at
We
work.
even have a mascot, jolly old Saint Nick, we've got him already here for you. Look at
Yes, yes.
this. We are ready.
For that name placard.
Awesome. You better adjourn us.
All right,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
You. Now, I know one thing, towards the end of